Welcome. My name is Tim McKee. I'm the CEO of the Olathe Chamber of Commerce, and welcome to our Friday Zoom call. With me from the Chamber is Susie Carson, our VP of Member Services, and we have a wonderful panel today regarding schools, our local schools, both from the Olathe School District and the Spring Hill School District. And we'll introduce our speakers here in a second. As we go on in our Zoom call, please feel free to ask questions of our two panelists, and we will try and get those questions to them as we progress in our conversation this morning. Today, we have a wonderful sponsor, a great partner of the Olathe Chamber, Piper Sandler and Company. Managing partner, Dustin Avey, is here to talk a little bit about Piper Sandler and then also introduce our guests. So Dustin, please take it away.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate the introduction. Good morning, everyone. Proud to be here this morning. Obviously, school business is what we focus on here in Kansas, and we're very proud to be a partner with the Chamber and with school districts across the state, providing financial services on budget matters and capital planning. We're also very fortunate to have Brian Geary and Jason Winbolt with us today as panelists. And I'm glad to introduce them and appreciate their time. Obviously, we're in a situation where these gentlemen and others who work with school districts and volunteer their times on boards are dealing with things that they never thought they'd be dealing with. So we appreciate all their time and effort, knowing that they have family activities, they have full-time jobs as well. And so for them to take some time out this morning to visit with us is greatly appreciated. With that, I'm going to introduce both of them and get started this morning with the discussion. I guess, first of all, I'll introduce Brian Geary. Brian Geary is a Senior Vice President at the Bank of the Prairie in Olathe. He's very, very active in many civic and community activities, including the School Foundation, the Chamber, Healthcare Foundation of Greater Kansas City. He is a famous coach, youth coach, and so he spends a lot of time helping his kids and working with youth in that manner. Him and his wife, Heather, moved to Olathe over 20 years ago, 1999. Their son, Micah, attends Olathe Public Schools, and daughter, Bree, is a graduate and a very good track record. So thank you, Brian, for joining us. And then also Jason from Spring Hill. Jason and his wife Angie have been a part of Spring Hill community since 2002, so nearly 20 years. They have two Spring Hill students. Jason has degrees in actuarial science, business administration, and teaching. He is employed by the 7th largest bank in the United States, where he works in the commercial real estate technology department as a business analyst. Jason's goal is to give students and teachers and staff at the district the tools necessary to prepare our students for life after high school in a competitive global job market. Obviously, Jason's been very active with the Spring Hill Board of Education. I believe he's been on the board for nearly 7 years. So thank you both to Brian and Jason. We appreciate your guidance and leadership during these times, as well as along with the other board members. And we appreciate you being here this morning to visit with all of us.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. Okay, Brian, would you like to kick it off today?
Sure, I can.
I apologize. Jason was going to go first, wasn't he?
Sure, yeah, that's
Jason,
fine.
how about you, sir?
Hi, Jason Winbolt here. So I'm currently the Vice President of the Spring Hill Board of Education. We serve about 3,500 students in Spring Hill, and we have about 500 teachers and staff administrators in the school district. The district obviously spans quite a bit. We actually have Overland Park, Olathe, Spring Hill, and Bucyrus in our district. So quite a few cities that we serve. I'm going to start off with some good news today. Our Prairie Creek Elementary School in Olathe actually was given the blue ribbon from the U.S. Department of Education. Very few schools get that, so that was a great achievement for our principal, Jody Cole, and especially the teachers and staff for that school in Olathe. We had a special meeting earlier this week on Monday at 7 p.m. to discuss COVID and our gating criteria. We had quite a few panelists come in as well. Dr. Ahmed from the Kansas State Department of Health and Environment, Elizabeth Holshoe with the Johnson County Department of Health and Environment. And then we had a couple of medical doctors, Dr. Brooks and Dr. Banks. Dr. Brooks is a medical doctor that lives in the Spring Hill district, and Dr. Banks is with the Miami County Health Department. We also heard from Tim DeWeese, who is the director of the Johnson County Mental Health Department. And all of those experts gave their advice and opinion on how we should proceed forward on the gating criteria. We also heard from the public, and they gave their advice and opinion as well. And we heard everybody's opinion. And after a long meeting, we decided to change our gating criteria to something that gave us more data points than just the Johnson County gating criteria. We have not just the percent positive, but we look at hospital beds, capacity. We look at whether we're increasing or decreasing, but we also look at what mitigation factors that we're doing to combat the spread. Face masks, temperature checks, plexiglass at certain desks, things like that. So we added those into the mix as well. We also decided to move on to the Kansas State Department of Health's data because they show every test, not just individuals. So that was something that we wanted to move to as well. With all of that, that changed quite a bit for us. Where we went, right now we're currently remote with middle school and high school. Starting October 19th, as long as the gating criteria stays the way it is, we'll be in person with everyone starting October 19th. So it's quite a big change for us, but it's a welcome change, I think. Next week, we will do a couple of hybrid days just to get everybody acclimated back into, really, this is the first day of school again for a lot of the students. So it's going to be something they're going to have to learn, the distancing, the masks, how to go through the lunch line, all those types of things that they're going to have to learn. So we're giving them a couple of days to get used to it, and then we'll go in person October 19th. So I want to thank everybody that has commented to us through email, through public participation at the board meetings. It's been unique this year, and I like Dustin said, I've been on the board for 7 years, and this is completely different than anything we've ever done or even wanted to really talk about. We're really there to support teachers, staff, and students, and that's what we would rather be talking about and working towards getting the students of Spring Hill into the best colleges, careers, and training that they need after high school.
Great. I'll jump in, and some may be a little bit duplicative, but as Dustin mentioned, my name is Brian Geary. I represent the kind of north and northwest part of our district Board of Education. I'm currently serve as the vice president of the board, and we had a board meeting last night that lasted a little over 5 hours, so it was a long one, but it was very productive. And I think that's one thing with our board. We've been able to find that we may all not agree on things in principle and those types of things, but we can have pretty thorough discussions on things that really allow us to hopefully make the best decisions for both our, all of our students, our staff, our constituents, all of that. So that was important last night. As we discussed in our board meeting last night, the potential adoption of different gating criteria, as Jason mentioned, when we adopted the Johnson County gating criteria on August 6th at our August school board meeting, that was really the only gating criteria that was out there. The school districts had been asking for this for really since the pandemic started at the end of the spring, and we just really because we couldn't decide when it was safe to go back, and we wanted to hear from experts. And at that time, that was what was out there. About a week later, KDHE, which is the Kansas Department of Health, along with the State Department of Education, put out some of their reopening plans and included some pieces in there. Shortly after, the Mid-America Regional Council, or MARC, for the Metro Kansas City area, put out some gating criteria. And then kind of as September got going, I believe the CDC kind of started to put a little bit more specific gating criteria rather than just guidelines out there. So we made a decision back in August to go ahead and follow the Johnson County Department of Health, as we felt it was important to be as local as we could with our decisions. And again, that was our only option at that point. So we did open that way. We allowed our students and parents to decide whether they wanted to do the semester remotely completely, or they wanted to select in person. We had selected August 23rd as our date of this is when we would select the gating criteria with what we would go with. At that point, it led to us being in a full remote option for our middle school and high schoolers. And for our elementary schools, it was either in person or hybrid. We, again, as a district of 31,000 students, 4,500 staff members, we need to get that information out plenty ahead of the game so that people could make plans as needed. And we also needed to help train our staff as best we could and prepare them, because they are just as important as everybody else. The challenging part became that we ended up pushing back our start date to the Tuesday after Labor Day. So September 8th was our first day where we welcomed our students to hybrid model at the elementary, where they were, and we selected Monday, Tuesday, kids went. Wednesday was a completely off day for everybody, where they were in remote learning at home. And Thursday, Friday was a B day. So we found that at that time, we thought that might work the best, having kids come 2 days consecutively, and then clean our buildings, go through that on Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, the other group would come. And we found that to be very challenging from both a teacher's perspective, our parents' perspective. You can imagine a first grader constantly having to get on Zoom times, those types of things. It was hard, and it's hard right now, and it's hard at all levels. But we heard from people. We heard from a lot of people that was not working. One of the reasons that we decided to go to hybrid was just so that we could, number one, assess where a lot of our students were at. They hadn't been in school physically since March. Elementary kids, we just wanted to see in a smaller group level for our teachers where each of these kids was at, and being able to do that individually was important. The second part was just getting everybody comfortable with what our new policies would be and what worked and what didn't. Let our teachers try some things. And so that was a big part of why we selected hybrid to start with. Our plans really all along were to get to that in-person piece, which we then made the decision to move to that part, which was started on Monday, the 28th of September. We welcomed all of our students, K through 5, all of our elementary school students, in 100% 5 days a week in-person learning. So that was you can imagine, I love hearing, as we hear the buses roll down the street and I see the car lines at the schools, it was a great feeling. It has been there's been obviously the excitement, but there's also been challenges. There's a lot of things that we've had to adjust, and people will continue to adjust. So shifting gates, we decided at our October 1st meeting, as yesterday that we would look at some of the other gating criteria that was out there. Johnson County put out a brand new set of gating criteria at 4 o'clock yesterday. So we evaluated all those 4 gating criteria again. We ultimately decided as a board to stick with the Johnson County gating criteria, but in their new format, which includes an incidence rate per 100,000 on the new cases as part of their gate. And we also added a piece that really was from the Kansas Department of Health of absenteeism. So we added that as part of our gating criteria, because we really want to get, if the things we're doing well are working, we want to see that that's working. So that looks at the absentees of our schools only versus last year. So we really wanted to see how we were doing as a district versus perhaps the entire county's plus or minus. So we did adopt the Johnson County to remain in the Johnson County gating criteria with the adjustment of adding absenteeism as well. So we don't know where that puts us. I would imagine October 19th will be our first, would be the earliest we would start that for our students. There's our hope by all of us. We want to get all kids in person as quickly as we can, but also safely in the ways that we view it as well. So there you go.
Wonderful. Thank you both, gentlemen. I appreciate the update. So a few questions. Both of you mentioned that in this process, the partners that you had along the way, whether it be from a hospital or maybe the health department, have came in and helped with this. How important were those partnerships? Were they already there beforehand? Did that really help with this? And how much have they helped you with these decisions along the way?
Actually, some of these partnerships that we've never really had to talk, especially like county health department, we really never had to talk to them before about certain things. I mean, yes, if we have a flu outbreak, then yes, we would have to talk to them. But other than that, we really hadn't talked to, definitely not an epidemiologist or anything like that. But we do have really good relationships with our other, at least from my point of view, with our other boards of education in Johnson County. Our superintendents have a really good relationship with each other, and I think we continue to talk to each other on how we see things coming and how we're going to work together to get things done. So it's we also have to work with Miami County because we have about 25% of our students come from Miami County. So we have to work with multiple agencies, multiple departments, and bringing all that together is something our superintendent Leanberg does very well.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I know that Jason mentioned that the superintendents, they've always been good partners with each other to kind of make sure that things are going. This has added a whole new piece. I know that Mr. Allison and the other superintendents in Johnson County and the area, I mean, they're constantly meeting with the epidemiologists at Johnson County, the health directors there. I believe at least weekly, if not more frequently. They have, I know Mr. Allison is one of the representatives on the MARC, Mid-America Regional Council panel that incorporates all kinds of hospital CEOs and those types of things. I believe Children's Mercy and KU Med are both part of many of the people that are being spoken with. And then they have their superintendents around the state that they speak with regularly. So from I think we see in our communities that, and we hear this a lot, that our communities are open. I mean, for the most part, you can go get a burger, you can go to shop, you can do about anything except go to school in the way we used to, which is hard to justify. And we're obviously trying to learn new ways to how things are working in different parts of the state as well. Different parts of, we have partners in Omaha and Des Moines and Naperville, Illinois, and other places around the Midwest that are experiencing similar things in similar sized districts. So it's important that we're kind of seeing what's working and what's not, despite that piece. So I think, Mr. Allison's done a really good job of keeping us as a board updated on what's working, what's not. We typically don't get too far into the weeds on a lot of things. And this has kind of forced us to get up to speed on a lot of things that we normally might not get involved with, which has been it's been really good. And I think and I know Jason would say the same thing about Wayne down at Spring Hill. We're blessed with good superintendents that give us the real details. They're not political. They're not worried about, they're worried about their teachers. They're worried about the students, but they also understand the importance that we play in the community and the things that we're hearing, constantly, literally thousands of emails that I've received in the last week and a half. So, and our other board members, it's happening. We hear from people. We can share that with them. So our biggest partners are each other right now, and him keeping us up to speed on how things are going. He'll reach out occasionally individually to us if we have questions about what the health experts are saying, because that is important. But we also, it's mental health, it's physical health, it's all those pieces.
Thanks, guys. I have a question for you. The gating criteria. Can you talk a little bit about that gating criteria? How I assume, and based on what you're saying, Brian, it's up to the individual school district to choose kind of that information about the gating criteria, because I believe some of the other school districts in Johnson County have kind of taken that information or not taken that information and based upon it made their decisions. Can you talk, because it's a little confusing, I guess, for the outside person to understand, that gating criteria, what you're looking at, who you're looking at, or where that information is coming from. And Brian, can you talk a little about that? And Jason, Brian's talked a little bit about that for the Olathe School District. Can you talk about that for the Spring Hill?
I think that's important for Jason because they're, like I said, I mentioned ours, but I think if you listen to what Jason has to say, they took a little different approach, and I think it's one that we're all kind of figuring out. So, Jason, tell us how you got to yours. Good.
So one of the things we have an assistant superintendent. His name's Brad Wilson. Very, very great guy. Knows his stuff. He gets really into numbers, statistics, that type of thing. He actually went out and found the CDC gating criteria guidelines. And those things are like, again, this is some of the same stuff, number of cases per 100,000, number of tests that are positive. And then also hospital inpatient and intensive care beds, looking at the percentages of those. But one of the things that they talk about in their gating criteria is mitigation strategies, like use of masks, physical distancing, hand hygiene, things that we can do to help teachers, staff, and students remain healthy while they're in the buildings. One of the things that we added on there was temperature checks, which we do every day for our elementary students who are in full time. And we just scan them, they move in. We have 6 mitigation strategies that we track. The most difficult one that we can't always comply with is these distancing. You get a classroom of 20 students, it's just going to be hard to do 6 feet. But we do our best. We still do reading centers, math centers. It's just a little different than it used to be. With that, we actually created a point system for each value that we're in. So we're currently, for the last 2 weeks, we're above 200 cases per 100,000. That puts us in the red, but it gives us a score of 15 points. So we have a point system for each thing, each core indicator and secondary indicator. And I can share that if you guys want to see that. I have it up if you guys want to see it.
Love to.
Oh, somebody's going to have to let me. There we go. So this is our gating criteria that we're going to go with starting October 19th. We get points for each core indicator and then points for each secondary indicator. And right now we have over 200 cases. We're in the 5 to 8 range. And the reason we're in the 5 to 8 range is we are using the Kansas Department of Health data, and their values show that we're around 6 to 7%. We've employed 5 of the 6 strategies, so that gives us 6 points. And then we are decreasing here, so we get 3 points. And then the rest of these are 1 point for inpatient beds and looking at the outbreak. So that gives us a score of 37. So that means we're in the green on-site, everybody on-site. And this is something that, like I said, Brad Wilson came up with. We did a lot of talking about this on Monday, and we decided to go forward with this. And, you know, I know that other districts in Johnson County have different criteria than us. We think that this can work for us because we have 3,500 students instead of 31,000 students. So it's a little bit different for us from that point of view, and we're hoping it'll be successful.
So Jason, based on what you're saying, is you've kind of created your own gating criteria based
Right.
on CDC guidelines, and then also from a number of factors, and then basically have developed your own kind of gating criteria, then kind of a hybrid of a number of the different gating guidelines. Is that correct?
That's correct. And, you know,
Okay.
yeah, and thanks, Tim. It's one of those things where the school boards can do, they can do whatever they want. But I feel that it's necessary that we still listen to the experts. And the CDC came up with basically all of this. We added the temperature check, but everything in the point system, everything else is from the CDC. So we really talked about different strategies that we could use. And this wasn't one of those things where we said, okay, whatever it takes to get into the buildings. It was more of what are we really trying to measure? What are the key factors that we're really looking at? And this started off with, we want to flatten the curve. We want to make sure that hospitals have enough beds in case something, it turns and it gets worse again. Well, that's why we have our secondary indicators of looking at hospital inpatient beds, and especially ICU beds. So we believe that those are factors that we should take into account when deciding this, and not just percent positive, not just how many cases per 100,000. There are many other factors that we wanted to bring into this.
All right, Jason, thank you. Brian, can you elaborate a little bit about where you guys are? I understand you're using the Johnson County gating criteria, but do you look at others? What are all the factors you guys are looking at deciding to go back?
Sure.
And you touched on it, but I think it's a little, I mean, from an outside perspective looking in, it's a little hard to understand.
Yeah, so our biggest goal was to try to be as transparent as possible, first of all, with our community. And it is confusing it's confusing for all of us half the time. I thought, if you go back, and I don't know at what point, so you want to move it around, but Mr. Allison did a great job of comparing last night in our school board meeting, of comparing kind of the 4 that a lot of the districts are using some portion of this year. The biggest thing that we've really tried to keep in mind is how local can we be, and like can we make sure that we're looking at the things that we can control as a school district. Are the mitigants that we're putting in play working? Are they not working? Are they adding to spread? Are they not? So that's one of the reasons that we selected Johnson County's gating criteria to remain with. However, we did a little bit of a hybrid by adding the absenteeism piece. So there is and again, I don't have a shared option, and we just finished it up last night at almost midnight. So I apologize for not having that, but it will be out soon. But the absenteeism, again, like I said before, really kind of hopefully shows some of the changes that we have, that we're making or need to make within our school buildings or school district, based on things that we feel like we can control now. You're going to have outside things that happen, which is why you compare it kind of year over year, because you're going to have a flu season that's going to come up that happened last year as well, and so that time of the year you're going to be a little bit more a little higher absenteeism rate typically. So ours is a little bit. We weighted all categories the same. That would be absenteeism, which again, I don't know where we're at today, but I believe we're pretty close to the green, which is good. We maintained the percent positive over the prior 2 weeks, and we're still continuing to use the Johnson County number on that. And then we also have with the updated Johnson County criteria is the incidence rate, the new cases per 100,000, which we've been shared with as something that's a good indicator. It seemed like it came up within all 4 of the different gating criteria pretty regularly as a good indicator of community spread. So ours really has 3 pieces: the absenteeism, the incidence rate, and the positivity, all weighted equally. And then we will make, kind of depending on what gate it's in, we would make that kind of call. I think we be pretty close to the hybrid if we did it today, but the measuring stick will, I think, ultimately be next week, and we'll see where things go. So there's no right answer. I think I know there's people here, have kids in DeSoto, have kids in Shawnee Mission, Blue Valley. We're all doing pretty close to the same thing, but getting at it at a different model, I would say. I think Johnson County and the Kansas Department of Health are probably the 2 most commonly used in Johnson County right now. Spring Hill did, as Jason said, they were kind of the first ones to adopt the CDC version with their kind of changes to it, which is, again, as he said, something that as we get more and more information, we need to make changes, and but we can't, there's just the community piece we all take into consideration. We also want to get all of us want to get our kids back in school as soon as possible, 100%. I have no doubt of any school board member that would say that. So
Brian, can you talk a little bit about what the differences are between some of the different school districts and where they're at and where we're at?
Yeah, I can give a good run at it. I think probably Blue Valley right now, I believe next week they begin hybrid for their middle school and high school. I believe they selected the AB route for all middle and high school, where they just alternate days. You go one day on in person full day, next day you're home full day doing remote learning of some sort. That's the part that looks a little bit different probably, whether it's asynchronous learning on your own or if it's a little bit of a check-in. I believe that their elementary is 100% in and have been for a couple of weeks now. And Shawnee Mission is slowly coming to, I believe they are going to be hybrid. Jason, you might know this too, hybrid at their elementary level starting, I believe they're shooting for October 12th, I believe. And I believe that their high school and middle schools are all remote still.
Right.
DeSoto, I believe, is in a hybrid format at the high school and middle school level. Susie, you might know this as well. But I think the majority of our high schools and middle schools in Johnson County are currently either in a remote or hybrid format at this point. And I believe outside of Shawnee Mission, I believe all elementaries starting next week will be 100% in person.
Right.
That sound right, Jason?
I believe so. Yeah.
And I believe that's pretty common. I mean, I think even if you go a little bit to their side of the state line, I know I've got, friends with kids in Liberty and those places that their middle school, high school kids are in a hybrid format at this point, elementary. So I think kind of from a regional perspective here around Kansas City, I believe that there are, that is a pretty common piece. So that, I think the big thing we hear about a lot is the private schools, and what they're doing. And there's a lot of I think there's a lot of rumors out there. I know, that, hey, why can't you just open up the doors like all the private schools are and go 100% in? They're not all that way right now. There's some hybrid in some of the, I know some of the high school level kids are doing some hybrids. They've had some outbreaks and different things. And they're also smaller than us and can do some of that social distancing appropriately and those things. Some of the really small private schools can. So, I think there's also a kind of a difference between some of them, but I think for the most part, a lot of them are doing hybrid at the upper levels.
Yeah, and one of the things that we decided to do is not go hybrid for any of our criteria. So our elementary students, we decided that they'd just be in school pretty much no matter what, unless the schools are shut down by the state. I mean, we do have gating criteria for that, but if they get to the point where we're all in the red zone, we're probably going to be shut down by the state anyway. But as far as the secondary schools go, we decided that they would either be in person or remote, no hybrid. And a lot of that is because as we evolved through trying to train our teachers on hybrid, and they do a fantastic job every day. And they would have done a great job with this. It was just going to be a lot of work, just trying to do remote and in person at the same time. It's just going to be a lot of work, and so we decided that we're just going to have them, and minus the couple of hybrid days that we have coming up for transition, that you're either on site or you're remote, and I'm hoping that it will be a better experience for the students and for the teachers, that they don't have to stress as much because they're already stressed out anyway with the extra duties that we have asked them to do, and just in general with the pandemic, it's very stressful. So yeah, and I will say that Blue Valley has actually adopted the Kansas Department of Education gating criteria instead of the Johnson County. So, I mean, there's different gating criteria in every school district around here. We've looked at Lewisburg and Paola just because they're close to us, and they're different than we are. So I guess that's the good thing about having local control. We get to have what we think is best for our district. While being a part of a bigger community like Johnson County, especially Johnson County. And we know that we're transient, that we leave Spring Hill to go to Olathe or to Gardner or wherever, that we can still do that for our students, but know that we have to be part of the bigger solution.
So gentlemen, what are the next steps? What is that timeline? And kind of when's the next board meeting? When will we know where we're going next, and when will you have those discussions again, or what's next in regard to these decisions? And
yeah, so we'll have a decision, or we'll have a gating read, if you will, hopefully either I would guess the start of next week, hopefully on Monday. We would have be able to let our parents and students and staff know where we will be able, what gate we will fall into, if it's hybrid, if it remains remote, that type of thing. Hopefully by the start of next week. Our goal is we have our parent-teacher conferences on the 12th week, so it's kind of a short week where there's only like 2 days of school, and so that week would be kind of hard to make any sort of change. But the 19th would probably be the earliest we would make that change. Whatever the gate read would be, probably on Monday or Tuesday of next week. We'll share that with our teachers, parents, and other community members that are important. And then our next school board meeting ours are always the first Thursday of each month. So November 5th would be our next school board meeting. One thing our board has given as opposed to holding a bunch of special meetings which we could do, but one of our, we've kind of given the board officers and the superintendent the ability to make slight tweaks if needed to the gating criteria as needed that might come up, as opposed to having to post and go through the administrative tasks of a full special board meeting. So we do have that ability if something were to come up and we needed to change rapidly. We certainly would try to have a special board meeting, but it is something that we could do if needed. But yeah, November 5th will be our next board meeting, since we had ours last night.
So Brian, based on that, so we aren't changing until the November 5th.
No.
Again.
We'll have our gating criteria that we approved last night.
Okay.
Says here's your points based on these 3 measures. Since it all just was approved last night, we haven't gone in to see what those measures are yet, because measuring absenteeism year over year by building, and where they are in positivity rate, where we are on cases per 100,000, those will all be measured, I would imagine, either today or probably on Monday. I think one of the clarifications we needed from the county was, how often are you going to put this information out? I think they do maybe Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or a few times a week, or some of it they do every day. Some of it, so there's a couple of mechanisms in there that we're trying to get understood from them so we selected that gating criteria. On Monday, we will make hey, we are in the yellow, for instance. I don't know what it would be, but that would mean hybrid for hybrid for middle school and high school, and that will start on October 19th. That would just be an example. That's not the case necessarily, but that's what we will say. And then if we need to make any changes or we need to revisit gating criteria, we would do that at our November 5th board meeting. As far as the actual gating, not what spot we sit in, but if we decide to change to the CDC or to Mark, or something comes different of Johnson County, we would make those types of decisions at a board meeting. But the gating criteria where we sit in the gating criteria would be decided next week, hopefully, so that we can share that out. But
so
Brian,
much moving. So it's based on numbers as the week goes along. So if you fall under that gate, can you start, like if it says, okay, we're below that certain amount that says we can go, would you then start the next week, or would the board have to come back, decide, okay, we're going, and then it's delayed a week? How does that?
Well, the hybrid, going from remote to hybrid.
Yeah.
It would be, for instance, something that if on Monday we find out that that's the gate that we fall into, we would do that as quickly as we could, which would probably be the 19th. Like I said, we wouldn't try to change on a short week of the 12th. If on the 19th it shows we should be in full remote again, when we're going backwards, it takes a lot more advanced notice, I would say, because we want to make sure that everybody can make plans. If you need to have kids at home the full time, we're going to try to give that advanced notice as much as possible. If we're going positive, or we're going 100% in full time, that's a lot easier because that was what everybody was kind of used to. So, but the evaluation period is still something we're talking about. Is it every 2 weeks that we'll make a decision? Is it every third Friday of the month? Those types of things. So we'll stay in those gates or those zones as long as we need to. And if we see that we slide into another one upon a measurement, then we'll make that notification. But again, it's hard with food services, transportation, all those types of things. It's not easy to make the changes real quick when you're dealing with so many people. So.
Yep.
And Jason,
and I'll just give ours. So we decided to we'll look at the data every week, and our administration will make that determination of what level we're in based on the data in our gating criteria. So We'll start on the 19th. So on the 19th, we'll look at the data, and if we're in something other than green, we'll probably give that 2 weeks, especially moving from on-site to remote. We'll have to give people time to get daycare, or even, because that'll be mostly the middle school, high school. They'll have to have time to get to there. But we will look at our data every week to see if there are any changes. And I wouldn't imagine there'll be any changes anytime soon. And we do have what we're calling a buffer zone, so that we don't switch real quickly. So our buffer zone is of a few points. So if we get into the buffer zone, we know that we may need to switch, and we'll let everybody know that, hey, we're getting close to going remote. Be prepared, and we need to switch. So that helps us quite a bit on moving from zone to zone, essentially. We asked the administration to build a dashboard for the public to see on our website, so that the public can see, where the data is, how things are moving, where are we at with the cases per 100,000, that sort of thing that affect us, so that they don't have to go to multiple sites. They can just go to one spot to see what zone they're in. I also wanted to say that I hope I never have to talk about this again. I'm hoping that this is the last time. This gating criteria that we have is the last one we have. I'm sure it'll come up again, but I'm hopeful. But we won't talk about it again probably until either our November 9th meeting, and maybe not even. We probably won't talk about it again for the rest of the semester unless we need a special board meeting. So we would prefer it to be that way, because we really want to get back to the business of educating our students. And we have KISA, which is the accreditation piece. We're working on that type of stuff. That's rolling around for us in the next year or two. So that's something we have to get prepared for as well.
Yeah, I want to mention as well, we have been building some transparency is a key piece. So on our school website, we do have our current COVID information on there, as far as number of both. We have broken out by students and staff, and then those are in quarantine by week. So you can kind of see where we as a district have kind of what we're looking at as far as helping make our decisions on different things. We don't go down to the building level publicly, because there are some potentially HIPAA violations that could exist there that we aren't real clear on at this point. But you can go out to the Olathe School District website and see kind of the number of cases that we have within the district, both by students and staff. And then I do believe we will be adding kind of our gating criteria numbers up there as well. Again, everything's so fresh for us from midnight last night that it's not up yet. So it
Brian,
might be. I don't know.
Brian, can you talk a little bit about last night's meeting and what you decided? I know that there were some issues around athletics and sports. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? And then Jason, can you talk about that, where you guys are as well too? But yeah, Brian, talk about last night's meeting.
Well, last night's meeting, I think I covered the majority of the main part was the gating criteria. I will add that we did get a presentation on what hybrid would look like for our middle school and high school kids. After consultation from our assistant superintendents, with the building leaders and some of the other principals within those different groups, we decided that if we were to go to hybrid, I believe they will go on an A-B format. Like I mentioned, at the middle school level would be just alternating days. You would learn remotely on your off day. You would just asynchronously. You would have a check-in with your teacher or advisor, homeroom teacher, however you want to look at it that way, each day, and then you would be in school full time on the next day. So just A-B alternating. For our high school kids, we didn't decide, but this is the method that we'll most likely go with, is an AM PM format. So and it will be broken out by alphabet. So if you are an A through L last name, you will go to school every day, Monday through Friday, from 7:45 to 11. If you're an M through Z, you would go to school every day from 11:45 to 3. And the time that you're not physically in the building, you would be working on your homework, perhaps doing some group work that you've been assigned that day. But we felt like it was really important to see our kids every day. That part of it was important, but trying to get in 15 or 1,600 high school kids all in one building right now, we just didn't feel like we were there yet. We want to see how our elementary being 100% in looks like, make sure we don't have any major issues, spikes there. Let's see how some of the new gating looks, and see if we can get everybody in person. But this at least gets our high school kids in every day of the week for part of a daily instruction. They are on block schedule, so they would remain on that block schedule for those, either if they're there in the morning or the afternoon. So that is what was presented to us last night as the options if we were to go to hybrid for both the middle school and the high school. There was a little bit of discussion. If you recall, we were one of the first of the larger Johnson County districts to allow athletics outside of the gating criteria, despite it being said that we shouldn't be playing athletics in the zone we were in. We decided to allow that with several mitigation things, and it's gone incredibly well. As it related to football specifically, it was considered a high-risk activity by the National Federation of High School Athletics, and they decided that. And so, as a mitigant, at that time, we followed one of the only other districts that had done this was Wichita at that time, that said, as long as those kids are learning remotely while they're playing football, and then 2 weeks beyond, or a negative COVID test, they can play. We approved that with kind of the assumption, we didn't really know what remote learning was look like, because this was start of the school year. We did brought it up last night that the remote definition, a lot of people were under the understanding that this would be the same type of remote learning they're in today, where they're on with a teacher every day, just as they are now. Well, that kind of changed that remote looks different now than what we originally thought, or at least I did personally, to perhaps just maybe just to check in with an advisor each day, and then you're learning on your own. Well, that's a lot of time to be, if everybody else is hybrid in school or in person or whatever that looks like, that's going to be different for them. And I voted last night that I didn't agree. I felt like we should go ahead and put them in and care about their, learning tactic versus maybe a little bit. We have 0 COVID cases in football in the last 30 days. We have 5 kids in quarantine. So our football kids are doing a great job. They've been doing that. However, part of what we agreed upon in our original to allow them to play was to leave them remote. And so that was a 4-3 vote. It did not pass. So those kids will stay in remote. I do think we'll have some further discussions on what that looks like. I think there were some things brought up that the district will be looking at that. So I don't know if that's necessarily over at this point, but I do think we're going to try to look at some different ways to make things work. So that was kind of the board meeting last night, if summarized.
For Spring Hill, we've actually had our activities and athletics. We started that with mitigation strategies. We haven't had any gating criteria for activities and athletics. So they've been participating in sports, and we actually just started they just started rehearsals for our musical this week. That's going to look different. They're going to be spread out all over the stage to do their singing, and they're going to wear masks on the stage. So it's going to be a little different, but they get to do it. That's the main thing. The unfortunate part of this week is we did have one football player test positive for COVID. And so we've had to suspend practice and we canceled the next two varsity football games. And so the next 2 weeks of football is not going to happen for Spring Hill, unfortunately, for Spring Hill High School. So I'm not sure if we're going to try to reschedule them or if there's even opportunity to do that. But that's kind of that's really the first time we've actually had to quarantine anything in the high school area. We have soccer going, cross country, volleyball. We did have a case in volleyball, but they're wearing their masks during practice. So we didn't have to quarantine or isolate anybody. So we've been very fortunate up until this week. But that's one of those things where you take that risk, and sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. And we're not going to see some football for the next couple of weeks, but that'll be fine. The kids are doing well, and they understand. Coaches understand that we decided to take the risk, and they were doing really well up, and they've had some really good football games the last couple of weeks. It's been a lot of fun to watch.
And Tim, I'll add, we were able to get our bands started to perform, or been at attendance of a lot of the games as well, which has been kind of nice to have. I know early on it was kind of like a scramble to see what bands were really ready. I mean, we know all that goes into that. That's so difficult coordinating. And then, we do not have them marching traditionally at halftime of the games. They do sit down in one of the end zones and play from there. They play their normal pieces. So we have slowly tried to continue to incorporate as organizations and activities are ready to get them in. So that was a great thing that we've been able to kind of slowly start to get closer to.
We've kind of done the same thing with band as well. We have them come out. We have a certain number of kids that come out and do the national anthem, fight song. This last Friday was senior night for the band and color guard. So the whole band came out and did all their pep music that they usually do, and it was so great to hear again at the football game. And we had a lot of fun, and I know the kids did too.
Brian, Jason, once again, thank you guys for being here this morning with us and kind of explaining where things are. One last question, and I think we're up to the hour, but if we do move forward in the hybrid model, do you feel comfortable with the amount of PPE and things that are you prepared for that? And is there anything that the business community could do to help in regard to moving forward as well?
I mean, I would just say that I think we are continuing to learn what all that is, right? So we have our elementary who's been in, but as we slowly start to get our middle school and high school kids back in at some level, I think we'll continue to see some additional needs. We feel like we are good where we're at, and I think we can always utilize more. But I do think we're in pretty good shape there. I do think continuing to find ways to fund testing will be important, and just the things that become important that the health departments are telling us, whether it be temperature taking or testing or those types of things. Anything, ideas that people have is always welcome, I'm sure.
And as we go on site for everybody, we want to make sure that everybody has masks on. So we're gonna be mindful of that and see if we need to ask the public for disposable masks or that sort of thing. We purchased a lot of plexiglass for desks already through some grant money, and then we'll see how it all goes for us. I mean, there are a lot of disposables with PPE equipment, and it's just replenishing them is something that we'll have to do. But as you know, the funds are limited, and so that we'll need to see how that goes over the course of the year.
Well, gentlemen, you have very tough jobs, and hopefully we never have to go through this ever again. And we feel for you, and we just hope that everybody remains safe. And I know that's your first and foremost concern, both with students and with teachers. And it's a tough job. And thank you both for what you do and participating in the school boards that you're on. Once again, thank you. And Dustin, thank you for sponsoring today and being such a great partner with Piper Sandler. Thank you, Dustin, for helping us today.
Tim, can I make one quick comment? I know Dustin rarely ever makes a mistake, but I actually work for Bank of Blue Valley, not Bank of the Prairie. So I would be remiss if I did not mention that as
advertising right there.
My employer that has been so gracious in this time to allow me so much time, I should at least mention Bank of Blue Valley as my employer. So
yeah, and apparently I need to update my bio, because that's mine's pretty old. I think that was my original bio 7 years ago. So I'm a business intelligence manager at Cerner now. So it's quite a big change, actually. So, and my daughters are in high school. One's going to be a senior. One is a senior. So it's we live in Olathe, but in the Spring Hill School District, and we love it down here.
Well, I'll take blame for the bios.
It's fine.
Both
You're
off
fine.
the website, so you might want to update.
Yeah, I'll take some time to update that now. And actually, I think Brian and I have recently connected more. I'm actually going to be the president of the Kansas Association of School Boards in a couple of years. So that's something that I've wanted to do for a while, and it's really important to me.
Yep.
Well, gentlemen, thank you. Thank you for being here. And Dustin, once again, thank you for sponsoring. And with that, keep up the good work, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Yep.
Have a good
Thank
day.
you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.